What you are about to witness has never been documented in 40 years of wildlife research, not once, not anywhere on this planet. A white-tailed deer, a prey animal, choosing to raise the three most dangerous predators on Earth. And what those lions did when they grew up will change the way you think about nature forever. The Limpopo Basin in southern Africa is a place where the rules of survival are written in blood and dust. Fever trees line the dry riverbeds like pale ghosts. Elephants move through the golden grass like slow thunder. And every creature that lives here understands one law above all others. Predator and prey do not mix. They never have, they never will. Except that one winter, they did. It began in the coldest month the basin had seen in a decade. Rangers at the reserve had been tracking an unusual lioness, albino, rare beyond measure, who had given birth to 3 white cubs in a rocky outcropping near the southern waterhole. White lions are not a separate species. They are the result of a recessive gene so rare that fewer than 13 exist in the wild at any given moment. These 3 cubs were something the world had almost never seen, a litter of them, together, breathing, blinking their blue eyes open into the African morning. But their mother never came back from her hunt that night. The rangers found signs of a violent confrontation near the eastern boundary, evidence of a territorial dispute with a dominant coalition of males. She had fought. She had lost. And she had left behind 3 tiny lives, barely 2 weeks old, completely blind to the danger now surrounding them. The cubs cried through the night. That sound, thin, desperate, barely louder than wind through dry grass, traveled across the waterhole. And something heard it. She came to the water at dawn, as she always did, a mature female white-tailed deer, broad in the shoulder, a notch in her left ear from some forgotten fight. She had lost her own fawn 3 days earlier to a python near the fig trees. Her body was still producing milk. Her instincts were still screaming to nurture something. She stopped 30 meters from the rocks. She could smell what was in there. Every nerve in her body was telling her to run. A deer does not approach a lion's den. A deer does not approach anything that smells like that. She stood frozen for 4 full minutes. The rangers watched through binoculars with their breath held. And then she walked forward anyway. What happened next was caught on camera, and wildlife biologists still argue about it in journals today. She lowered her head into the rocks. One cub pressed its face against her nose. She didn't bolt. She exhaled slowly, the way deer do when they decide something is safe. Then she lay down. By morning, all 3 cubs were nursing. The rangers named her November. After the month, everything changed. She moved through the bush with 3 white shadows at her heels. She was cautious in ways she had never needed to be before, not just watching the sky for eagles and the grass for snakes, but watching other lions, hyenas, anything that might see her cubs as a meal before they were old enough to defend themselves. She hid them in thickets during the heat of the day. She stood over them when the rains came. When a jackal got too close one evening near the eastern termite mound, she drove it off with her hooves, crashing down with a fury that sent it yelping into the dark. A deer protecting lions. The months passed. The cubs grew. And this is where the story becomes something no textbook had prepared anyone for. White lions mature faster than standard lions, possibly due to the heightened biological pressure their rarity places on survival. By 7 months, these 3 were already the size of large dogs, with paws like dinner plates and eyes that had shifted from blue to the pale gold of winter savanna grass. They still followed November everywhere. They still slept pressed against her flanks. But they were beginning to understand what they were. They watched other predators hunt. They practiced on insects, on lizards, on anything that moved. And slowly, something ancient and hardwired began to wake up inside them. The crisis came on a Tuesday afternoon in August. A lone male lion, old, scarred across the face, cast out from his coalition, found November at the waterhole. She was alone, the cubs resting in shade 50 meters back. The male was not hunting for food. He was simply asserting the only power he had left. He advanced on her with the slow, terrible confidence of something that has never feared a deer in its life. November couldn't run. Her legs wouldn't carry her fast enough. She turned to face him with nothing but instinct and the wild, unreasonable love of a mother. And then 3 white shapes came out of the grass. They didn't attack, they positioned, one on each flank, one directly behind the male. They lowered their heads. They made no sound, but the old lion understood the geometry of what he was looking at. He understood that he was surrounded by creatures who had grown up unafraid, who had never been taught to treat anything more powerful than themselves, who had been raised by the most vigilant, most ferocious protector in the basin. He backed away, then he turned, then he was gone. November raised her head. The 3 white lions pressed against her sides. She licked the top of the nearest one's head, this enormous, pale, magnificent predator, the way she had when he fit inside the curl of her body. In 40 years of wildlife documentation, nothing like this had ever been recorded. What November proved in that waterhole on that August afternoon is that nature does not only run on hunger and fear. Sometimes it runs on something older than both, something that crosses every boundary science has drawn between species, between predator and prey, between what should be possible and what actually is. She heard 3 cubs crying in the dark. She walked towards them anyway, and she made them kings. If this story moved you the way it moved us, hit that like button right now and subscribe so you never miss the moments that remind us why this world is still worth watching.